morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's do some Tai Chi. The waist is the commander. That's a phrase that you often hear. I say often hear, you sometimes hear it. Yes. And it relates to what commands or directs the power through the body. It's the waist that does that. So the engine, the powerhouse is the legs. So the legs, we're getting this ability to move our weight from one side to the other, turn, step. And again, you either come down, up and through, or you come over and down, and you're creating that engine, that power using song through the legs. Don't worry too much about the terminology. Just for now, that's partly what we're doing. Now, if you lean too far, you bring your knee over your toe here, you end up invalidating your structure. You're already off balance, you'll be pulled away and you lose power. It's more of an upwards and a downwards motion. So we're sitting down gently into the leg through, and that creates a roll back, if you like, a turning force, spiraling the energy down into the ground and then releasing it back up. Again, it's not you're not pushing, you're just expanding through. The waist comes center, and then we do the same on the other side. Okay, so we're going to be doing a number of exercises today, which are going to be focusing on that kind of movement through the waist. But there are, I've picked three very similar hand movements that do very similar things with the waist, but they are subtly different. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find our shoulder width. So feet together, turn at the toes, turn at the heels. And we're going to just start playing with this idea of transferring weight down through one leg. So if I'm taking my weight onto my left leg, I'm not just sort of like sitting down. I'm sitting and at the same time, keeping my center, keeping my spine upright, there is a turning. So as I sit down, you see that you're trying to keep the line as level as you can. Now this is very technical. You see my hands move. But actually, if you imagine a rod going down through the center of your body, you're trying to keep the rod fairly upright as you sit down. Don't let the knees do that. Okay, keep the structure, relax the legs, sitting down. And then when you finish sinking into that leg, you let it rebound and fill up, coming up, and the hips square. You're now central. And then you do the same on the other side. Now you probably find you've got one leg stronger than the other, or one leg does things better than the other. So just be aware of that. If you're sitting down and you're tight, just be aware of that as well. And don't try and force it to relax. Just let yourself, just let your mind sink into there. And then coming up and sitting down. So you're getting an upwards and downwards motion through the x-axis. But you're trying to keep it and not allow yourself to do these kind of things, sort of like throw yourself from side to side. It's just, say not allow yourself. Refine your posture over time. It's not that you're not allowing yourself, you're becoming aware of where you're doing it. And just try and just gently refine your posture. It's not a matter of you mustn't do that, you're bad, wrong, horrible, and judge yourself out of existence for doing it. Just be aware, because we all have imperfections that we need to correct in our movements and in our postures. And part of the way we do it, that's why Tai Chi is done slowly generally. I'll say slowly. It can be done really slowly. And the purpose of moving slowly is one, for strength, and two, for giving yourself the opportunity to correct these errors. Because if you don't take the time to find the errors and correct them, then you will find that you can't, they never get corrected, and you just build in more imperfections into your movements. Okay, so now we've got this waist thing going on. The shoulders, they sit over the hips. So we try and keep them roughly in line. So we've got this hinge going down the center of the body, and then the two center points here, or the two alignments there, the alignment with the hip and the shoulder. And you're trying to keep those so that the shoulders move, because the hips are moving. And the hips are moving, being powered by this motion, this piston action down into the legs. Coming up and round. Okay, so this is a fairly standard squaring of the hips exercise. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in the ward off movement. So as I'm sat down into my right leg, my left hand comes across in front, palm over the knee, and the right hand can come up at about shoulder height. So I want to try to create this kind of angle here in the arm so that the hands come facing towards one another, if you like, so in a classic whole ball posture. Now, the whole ball posture, it's not actually a posture in its own right. It's just we use it in order to make sure that our hands are in the right position technically. Eventually, you get to the point where you just sort of, you're not so particularly bothered about, I must be holding a ball here. Your hands just naturally do it. And then you move into the posture of ward off. Now, ward off, as I come up through my right hip and square the hips, my hand from the elbow just pivots and the hand comes up. So it's the elbow that I'm using as a pivot, but in relation to where my shoulder and my elbow are in space, they don't actually change in relation to the position of my body. It's the hips that bring the hands round, so the palm ends up in front of you, facing away, higher up, further out than the elbow. The other hand, same again, using the elbow as a pivot. As I come up, it's just the hand just sinks down. Okay, so there. And then in order to, if you want to really get technical with it, in order to make it pretty, you're crossing the fingertips across the wrist as you come up. And then we move to the other side. So we're sitting down into our left leg. My left palm turns to face the floor. My right palm can turn upright. And then squaring the hips. Now, don't worry too much about the hand positions at the moment, because there is a whole thing with the hands and how they turn in relation to the arm and so on and so forth. But what we want to get is this kind of opening up through and using our legs. So the ward off, the hips are square to the front as you come up, and then you turn into a roll back form and go. And it should be power from the legs, commanded and directed by the waist. It's then issued through the shoulders and expressed by the hands. And really just take the time. So the hip position in this particular exercise is roll back, so the hip drops in, the other hip goes forward, working around our waist, and then the hips square around the center as you come up and release up through the leg, and that's when the hands open into ward off. Turn and open. Now, don't get too eager to kind of rush this and you end up sort of doing this kind of thing. And you notice there's like a boom, 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 and the hands aren't really coordinating with what I'm doing. It's done slowly so that we can create the jin through the body. If you don't do it slowly and take the time to connect the mind through the pathways, then you never get it. And you don't really get the strength and the power that Tai Chi works upon. Now, to start with, this is quite difficult because the brain is trying to take in all these instructions and get your head around the movement. Over time, through practice, continual practice, taking your time, you start to relax into the movement more. And you don't have to engage the brain in quite the same way. The mind can just rest within the body, rest the attention in the body as you move. Now there is a very slight finger space as we square the hips for the definition of the movement, but the mind continues to follow. So although the movement itself, there is a tendency to sort of like get this kind of thing going on, and that feels really quite good. From the physicality we have here, make the movement correct, adjust your posture. The mind is ready to follow on. So there's a break in the posture, but not a break in the jin. And similarly, in the roll back, as you sit down, break in the posture, not a break in the jin. And it's just a finger space for definition rather than a break, I suppose. So that is a classical ward off. Relax, release, let the legs go. Now, another movement very similar is the horse's mane. So the hands are doing something similar, only the palm is down, the left hand palm is down in the whole ball, the right palm is facing the floor. And as you square the hips, the left palm turns up, the right palm crosses. So the palms actually cross over one another rather than the wrist. With the ward off, it's the wrist and the hand comes up, because the hand has been there and it just comes up and opens. With part horse's mane, there's more of a turning motion in the arm. And the hand, as it comes up, shoulder, elbow, relation to space stays similar, although there's an opening of the shoulder, opening of the elbow, opening of the wrist, and it comes more to the side, which means that as you settling down into the leg, you adjust your foot. So my left foot, my right foot now is just turned out slightly more. So my right, my left foot has turned out more as my left hand comes out and I'm sitting down. So I'm facing the corner more, but my hips are still relatively square to the front wall. So my back foot stays pointing at that wall. And then we just continue the motion round. So we turn our left palm over as the right hand comes underneath. Then we release up through our left leg here. As we cross the palms, right palm turns up. I'm turning out my right toe and turning in the left toe. So my hips can sit down comfortably, squared to the front wall, and I'm opening to the corner, if you like. Now, be careful you don't end up doing this kind of thing. Sitting down, toe, knee, elbow in line, open, round so the palms turn. This is a guarding motion, if you like. It's a version of roll back, but it's like defend the face, bring the shoulder in here. So you're there, you will be quite close into a body that way. And then as you open up through, you're taking hold of the hand, if you like, if it's blocking a punch on the closed side. So they're punching from this side of your body there. Their body is in front of you. They're punching across. So you're blocking through here, turn, and then you're crossing the palms as you open up, turning out, settling in, and it creates like an opening, a scissor action, a throwing action, if you like. Elbows roughly stay in line if you can. It's quite useful having the video. Now, you can see where I'm going wrong. And then open up, come through. So you're getting this opening up. So this is to do with the split gait, chai, where you come through, open here. And I'm just using my heel as a pivot for my foot. So I'm just turning out, sitting down, opening up through and closing through, keeping the hips square to the front wall. Turn, come through, through. Now, of course, the trick with this one is, because you're doing this kind of weird thing going on with your feet there and in, there's a tendency to sort of like let the waist and the dantian wobble around and the legs wobble around. So you're still moving around your center. So sitting down, moving around your center, turn. So you're turning in, but the hips are staying square and then coming through, and it corkscrews up through the body, round and down, round, down, round, down. Now, here I'm showing the movement by doing 1, 2. Eventually, you kind of, your feet just kind of move and they will find their way that they're comfortable with it. Okay. Now, although this is almost like a corner stance, don't forget your hips are square to the front wall. So it's not like turning the hips in on this one, because this is slight variation on the gait opening through. So the hips need to be square to the front wall as you're facing the corner round. It's just a matter of just playing with the movements until they become more comfortable and natural. One more. And relax. Okay. Then there is the classic cloud hands. So cloud hands is very similar to ward off, but instead of the fingertips crossing over the wrist, there is this movement here where the fingertips here pass through the tiger's mouth. Okay. Now again, that is done as a point of reference to stop you from just waving and wandering your hands around all over the place, okay? You'll find styles where they don't worry too much about that, and that's fine. It's not that we're right and they're wrong, or they're right and we're wrong. What we're doing is we're using that as a coordinate system. So the fingertips cross through the tiger's mouth here, and then the waist turns. So keeping the legs shoulder width apart. Don't worry about transferring weight from one side to the other at the moment. You're just coming up, turning. When you get to the end, turn the palms, cross through and back. So you have this palms, cross through and back. Now practice that until you are comfortable coming through, turning the palms, cross through, turn the waist. So the hands move round because the waist is turning. Remember, the waist is the commander. Okay. Now, if you have the turning of the palms down and you're happy with that, we're going to change it slightly. So what we've got here is that as the palms turn and come up, what we're actually doing is the palms are coming through and then the palm is turning so it ends up flat as it comes round. So you get the turning force here. The other hand turns towards you as you're moving. And then you cross through and turn. Cross through and turn, cross through. So what we're doing now is instead of it coming round, turn, through, turn, through, you're making this a little bit more fluid. And then we get the waist changing from one side to the other. So as you come across, the waist turns, sitting down as we did with Waldorf, then come back, around. And this one, of course, the finger space is at the end as you're coming and then returning. That becomes more obvious because cloud hands also has a movement with the feet. So do all the postures really. But in this case, what we're going to be doing is as you come through, transferring your weight across, sitting down, step up. Then you transfer the weight as you go through, sit down, step out. Transferring your weight, stepping up. Myself another room. Transfer the weight, step out. Then what we can do is return as we do in the 10-step. Come back, stepping up, stepping out, stepping up, stepping out, and return. Return. And return. Really relax. Now, stepping with this is quite difficult because one of the things you don't want to do is have your weight on both feet close together at the same time. You've got nowhere to go. You've got nothing that can move. If your feet get taken, you're down. It's that simple. So what you're trying to do here is as you come across, you're coming through, stepping in. And as the foot goes down, presses down, the other foot comes up. So you're ready to move, stepping out. And then you can transfer your weight across like that. Okay, the same the other way, coming up. A bit weird and wonderful, but it's quite important and it does take quite a bit of practice. So you see, foot comes up, ready to step out. And the outward step to the side, the toe goes down, and then you place the heel down. So you've got that downward motion through and round. And then the weight is in this leg. As I pick this heel up, bring in the toe, toe down, heel down, swap, stepping out. Okay, so you've got this weird little step going on. Almost like a salsa dancing, except it's not a, it needs to be more of a, see what I mean? So you're coming up. That's exaggerated, but that's basically what you're trying to do. So you're stepping in, stepping out, through, stepping in and out. Okay, so you're trying to avoid a double weighting. So you've got your weight together evenly on both feet at the same time. It's not specifically wrong, but from a martial arts point of view, it's not the best thing to do. Okay, so whenever you step up, you want to kind of have all your weight on one leg, but the other one needs to be able to move. And if you transfer it, you need to be able to do that. Okay, so that you have options. If you were here stepping up and someone took that leg, at least you can let that leg go and you can put the foot down. I wouldn't like to try it, to be fair, because you're sort of going through, but it's something to bear in mind, and it's one of the things we're practicing as part of the peaceful style of Tai Chi. So you can practice, you have the time to practice so that your body learns to do it, so that if you ever needed to do it, it would do it naturally without you having to think about it, because if you're thinking about it, you're already dead. Simple as that. Simple. Yeah. Anyway, have a play, have a practice, and let me know if you've got any comments or questions. Thank you so much. See you in the next one.